Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to round 7 and 8 of the BFBS Armed Forces Virtual Racing Challenge Season 4, if you can believe it, here at Snetterton, all the way down in the virtual recreation of Norwich in Norfolk. My name is David Christie, and of course, joining me back in the booth after having a lovely week's holiday, although I definitely don't think it was a holiday for him, we welcome back John Knighton into the commentary booth. John, welcome back, and of all the weeks you missed, you had to miss that absolute blinder at Donington.
It really was, Dave. Good evening to you, and good evening to you watching wherever you are around the world tonight. So it was a great night. I have to say, brilliant commentary from yourself and Alex last week. Really putting myself in the shade. But it was a terrific couple of races, wasn't it? And I must say that the likes of Stuart McFadden and Will Fuchs, Matty Chambers, and also Chris Pawley, really showing what they were up to, and Ryan Martin, of course, showing what they were up to last week in those two terrific races. It was packed with incident, wasn't it? I think we packed as much incident into those two races as we've had in the previous four. Brilliant stuff, really was.
It certainly was. There's a reminder of the calendar. We're rapidly approaching the halfway point. We head off to Knockhill next week even. And I'm very, very happy to that. Absolutely no biasness whatsoever. Just talking back to race 5 and race 6 last week, there's Stu McFadden taking the win in that first race after Ryan Martin cruelly denied an awful, awkward incident with a back marker on that final lap. Will Fox taking the win in that second race. And that means that the championship standings are just absolutely wild. As you can see there, Ryan Martin in the lead with 541 points, your championship leader ahead of Chris Pawley, but rapidly ascending is Stu McFadden in that second place, 447 points, just 3 points ahead of Adam Barron, and then another 4 points ahead of Tom Stevens. James King in 6th, Chris Boland in 7th, Paul Hayhoe in 8th, Matty Chambers in 9th, and Will Fox taking that win last week down in 10th position. But honestly, that is such a close fight for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. You're seeing here Royal Air Force, and I think, John, at this point in the season, given the sheer volume of numbers entering, this should be a fairly given affair for the Royal Air Force.
Yeah, I mean, they've really started off the way they mean to go on, but they do have a huge number of entries in the championship this year. And, they're all doing so well, aren't they? And they've really adapted well to these Toyota GR86 Cup cars this year, which are looking really, really good on the track.
They certainly are, and a whole heap of fun as we cross to qualifying. A huge thank you, as always, to our commercial partners, to the British Forces Broadcasting Service, to Splunk. We will have a lot more to talk about that tonight. Really, really excited. Finally, we get to stick our teeth into the data and analytics provided by Splunk, and to racecarradios.co.uk as well for providing all of the communications here tonight. So, let's talk a little bit, John, about Snetterton, a track that I'm very familiar with, a track that I've raced in real life, and it is just a crazy mix of long, high-speed straights and tight, twisty turns. But in these GR86s, I think we are going to have some spectacular racing here tonight.
Yeah, we certainly are. I mean, I've been to Snetterton a few times just to actually cover events and see races taking place. Never actually done what you've done. Of course, that's driven them, but it's a great little circuit, isn't it? 1.952 miles long, and those two huge straights, the Senna Straight, obviously for the start finish, and the Bentley Straight as well on the far side of the circuit. And then you've got, as you say, this interlocking at least 3 hairpin bends, or 2 hairpin bends anyway, with some real opportunities for overtaking and sort of getting into the getting into the back bumper of the car in front of you. And I think we're going to see quite a lot of that tonight, particularly on some of these twisty corners.
Yeah, it does actually bring up a little bit of an awesome point. We do have a fantastic video that we're going to be chatting to Dan Hardwick from Splunk to go over all the data and the analytics, and it gives us a perfect example of how important the tow can be in these cars, but even more how having a superior driving ability and behaviour behind the wheel, in terms of throttle input, in terms of brake input, really does make all the difference in these cars. One of the other things, John, that we've noticed throughout the season with these GR86s, and we'll notice all the way through qualifying, we see Ryan Martin at the top of the timing screens. The rear end of these cars very, very happy to go out, and quite a tricky little car to handle.
Yeah, very much so. And it's almost like watching rallying sometime with these controlled drifts around. But it's very different in competition, obviously, when they're racing against each other compared with at the moment when they're in qualifying, trying to get the fastest possible time. I think it's really interesting. But these cars are set up so differently, aren't they, from what we saw last year with the Porsches and the year before with the Mazdas. So different.
They absolutely are, and I think these actually share maybe a little bit in common with the MX-5 Cup car in terms of the enjoyability factor of driving these things, because they look wild, and certainly the drifting looks pretty spectacular, but they're actually a fairly forgiving car and very, very enjoyable experience nonetheless. But more about that as qualifying goes on. Ryan Martin ahead of Will Fox, Stu McFadden up in P3, Tom Stevens in P4. You've got then Pauly in P5 and Bolins in P6 with Ollie Waynes and Banks in 8th position. Just looking through that top 10 right now, and again with all the traffic that we've got here at Snetterton, of course it's the full 300 layout here, John. How important is it going to be to either get a clear bit of track, do you think, or do you want to be in the toe of somebody else and try and get that little boost?
Yeah, I think very important. I mean, I think it's important in all of the races, isn't it, to have, particularly in the first race, obviously pole position, we'd obviously spin the wheel at the end of the first race to decide the grid positions for second. But we're just seeing the same names, aren't we? Ryan Martin up there once again. And Stu McFadden as well with Fuchs as well, Will Fuchs as well, and Chris Pauly. These are the people who are already beginning to make their mark in the championship, and they seem to be the people who have really made the transition best into the new cars. And the way it's looking tonight in qualifying, difficult to see things going to be very different. I'm still looking forward to seeing some of the people who we're keeping a close eye on last year. Ollie Wayne, for example, and Craig Durrant, Chris Slater, Michael Clough as well. Cloughie, he had his moments last year, didn't he? But so far, we've not seen the best of them. And as the race has gone, this is the ideal circuit for them to make a bit of a challenge this time.
And one of the things that we've seen through the course of the season as well here, John, is the fact that all of the field is so tightly bunched together, whether it's the top 5, top 10, or even outside that top 10. All of the places matter just as much for all of these drivers here, as we're watching Ward just heading through the bomb hole just now. Also, another thing I want to bring to your attention actually is we've got to say a big hello to Adam Barron, who is actually watching us rather than taking part in qualifying tonight, with some incidents that happened last time out at the previous race at Donington. It must be a very strange feeling, and this is exactly what he said, is that it's such a bizarre feeling watching qualifying rather than actually taking part in it, and I guess mentally preparing yourself as well for the race, because this is also some important seat time for these drivers.
It is, yeah. Adam, good evening to you. Shame we're not seeing you in action tonight, because you've already been making a big contribution this year to the championship, but hopefully you'll be back before too long. And I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of Dan's data collection at half time, because that's going to be fascinating to see, how the drivers are really reacting in these early stages of the new season. And we're actually going to see some lap analysis as well, I think, as well, aren't we, Dave? So that's going to be really, really fun at half time.
It certainly is, and we've got a sneak peek of some of the data that comes through thanks to Splunk, and yeah, it is awesome, the amount of granular detail that you can go down into. Just to clarify as well about Adam Barron, he is, from what I understand, still going to be taking part in the race. It's just he's having to start at the back of the grid and is ineligible to qualify tonight. So I believe he is going to take part in our races tonight, but it's just that he's not taking part in the qualifying. But 4 minutes left to go here. Ryan Martin now. That is a comfortable lead at the front of the field there. 0.4 of a second. Near enough half a second there, John. And Stu McFadden, we've normally seen more than a little bit closer here. However, we did see that pole position getting snatched on the last lap by Martin earlier on last week.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take your word for it. Obviously, I didn't see that last week, but yeah, he's got a great chance. And apologies to Adam. I assumed he wasn't actually. He was watching, but starting from the pit lane, presumably in the first race tonight. But he'll be keeping a very close eye on how the cars, I'm sure, are dipping around this circuit and making the most of what he can see and maybe the data he's collecting at the moment. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this race very much indeed tonight, Dave, because as you say, we're approaching the halfway stage in the season now. So a lot of these drivers are really beginning to bed themselves down.
And it's so important as well, given that we are coming up to that halfway point. The points really, really do start to matter at this stage. You want to have good, consistent finishes here. And especially at a track like this, especially where there's a lot of heavy braking zones here at Snetterton, getting a good finish is going to be absolutely crucial. I can see a lot of tears before bedtime at the likes of Agostini and late braking heroes into the hairpin at Montreal as well. Thankfully, I don't think we're going to see any bravery going into Brundle, into Nelson, but again, just as from what I've noticed, and to explain to our viewers at home, what we've seen with the GR86s is that these tyres seem to warm up very, very quickly, and the cars get more slidey and more slippery as the 15-minute race goes on. And then towards the 10 minutes, that's when it seems to really, really pick up. And if the drivers have been overly aggressive, fighting a little bit too hard, then you're going to start seeing some cars slipping and sliding about towards the end of the race here. But again, we'll keep an eye on track temperatures. But John, 2.5 minutes left to go here in qualifying. Ryan Martin still got that half a second lead over Will Fox and Stu McFadden down there in third position. Going on to the start of this race here, how important is that run down to turn one going to be? Do you want to try and make the move, or do you think you're just going to wait and see how this race actually develops?
Well, there's plenty of overtaking space, isn't there, on this track? So I don't think there's any need to be making a move too early. The only thing is, of course, that when you do have that lead, you can watch the scraps going on behind you and actually enjoy it. We've seen that several times already, where the lead drivers have really been able to sort of get ahead and really allow the cars behind them to be jockeying for position. So, pole position is really important here, really important on this track, because you're off down the centre straight. It's not a huge run to riches, is it, at the first turn? And then you've got another nice long run down to Montreal and that first hairpin, which could cause mayhem later. And then obviously the Bentley straight on the far side of the circuit as well is another opportunity going down towards Brundle. So there's obviously lots of overtaking opportunity, but the drivers, because they're getting more and more used to the cars, the tyres, I'm sure they're going to be quite sensible in this first run.
Well, we'll wait with bated breath on that one. Sensible is not a word that I thought we'd ever be using this season here with BFBS Afvrc in Season 4. But the one word I definitely would use is respectful, despite the, some of the significant incidents that we have had through the first couple of races. It has been very, very obvious that none of them have been intentional. There's been a lot of respect, a lot of hands getting thrown up and apologies getting given. And it's fantastic to see that in such a closely fought championship, John.
It is, yeah, and mutual respect. It doesn't matter whether it's the virtual racing or racing for real. You've got to have respect on the circuit for your fellow driver. Otherwise, what can happen if you don't have that. And this is great training, isn't it? Obviously for what's to come in real life, because the Armed Forces Challenge will be going to Snetterton later on in the season. So this is just brilliant training for them. Obviously on the 300 track as well. So as you can see, then heading down now the centre straight. Not too long to go now in qualifying. In fact, some of the cars are bringing themselves into the pits now. At the end of qualifying, we've now reached the end, And I wonder whether Martin Brundle's watching this evening. If you are, good evening to you, Martin. Obviously, they've been so busy with F1 over there in the Middle East that, but you know, there is a bend named after him, and he's probably back home in not too far from here this evening. So, good evening to you, Martin, if you are watching, and you know that our Forces drivers are really loving it here.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And also, talking of which, we do have to notice that Ryan Martin, yet again for the second week in a row, taking it out of the bag. A bigger lap, a better lap that last lap round there, doing a 2:06.382, now taking that gap up to 0.7 of a second. So Ryan Martin provisionally on pole position. I haven't seen any stunning laps going in the past 5 minutes. That is very, very wide. I think that was Dan Hardwick coming out of the final corner there. That is almost certainly going to be a 1X and pretty much destroyed that lap there. In fact, that was Liam Waterhouse going across the line. So it is Ryan Martin, Will Fox, Stu McFadden and Tom Stevens. That's your top four just now. We'll get a grid up very, very shortly. Luke Arpino, we see into that top 10 as well, John. Is there any names in that that top 10 that stand out to you, or is that it's kind of who we've seen all season?
Yeah, as I mentioned, Ollie waned earlier on, and I expect Ollie to produce something very, very soon. You mentioned Luke Arpino. Good to see him. He was actually floating around the course a little bit earlier on. I watched him in practice, so he obviously got to grips with it a bit now. And yeah, Chris Pauly as well. I mean, he's there or thereabouts, isn't he? So we've got some of the usual suspects who are going to make an impact tonight. I think, well, Ryan Martin, very, very, very strong, isn't he? He's looking really good, top of the championship, and he looks like he's going to have pole position here as well. But he's got a couple of drivers who are hard on his tail in Fuchs and McFadden, so that's going to be very interesting as well. And Tom Stevens too. Looks like he's sort of sneaking into fourth spot there. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting grid when we get going. And we're not long to wait now.
Yeah, certainly is. So final cars just coming through the final couple of corners now as well. Dan Hardwick there, we saw a little look at his car. I've got to be honest, that is a beautiful looking livery on that car. I love that hexagonal honeycomb design that's on the side of that car, and then you've got the colours at the back as well. A lot of effort and a lot of branding time gone into making these cars look as great as possible. And again, that just shows how seriously, John, that the drivers are taking this championship.
Absolutely. It's great to see our BFBS logos emblazoned across all of the cars this year. You know, make no apologies for that. Great to see the BFBS name up there among all the other worthy members of the people. Anyway, we've got the starting grid, the lineup.
Yep, let's take us through the starting lineup for our next race of the championship. Ryan Martin on pole position alongside Will Fox. You've then got Stu McFadden alongside Tom Stevens on row 2, Chris Pauly on row 3 with Chris Boland, Ollie Waned and Jez Banks on row 4, Luke Arpino and Craig Durrant in row 5. Then it is row 6 of Liam Waterhouse and Chris Darnell, 11th and 12th place respectively. Dan Berris is going to be on row 7 with John Finch alongside him. And then in 15th position, Chris Slater alongside Stu Etic, Adam Waters with Rhys Bowes, Michael Clough and Ryan Abbott, Ben Weston and Lyndon Noble on row 11, Steve Ward and Dan Hardwick on row 12, and then at the back of the grid, 25th, 26th and 27th, Glenn Griffin, James King and Adam Barron. That is how the grid line up here. We've got our pace car is going to be at the front. We'll get a full pace lap here at Snetterton, John. But again, now the nerves starting to build a little bit here. In fact, sorry, it's a standing start. Do you know what it was? It was Stu McFadden's car there. I mixed that up for some reason with the pace car. I'm getting old. We'll let that one slide.
Oh, he's popped back anyway, so he's there now. We had a missing car. It looked like we had just a car on its own at the top. I didn't think we're having a rolling start for this one. Here we go.
No, it's standing start then. The lights come on the Gantry Bridge and we are away for race number 2. And that's a little bit of a connection problem there for Will Fox, but he gets the jump. Ryan Martin with a terrible start there. And Will Fox already off into the lead of the race there. And it looks like that's Tom Stevens who's got the hold shot as well up into turn 1 here. And this is going to be a wild start there. Ryan Martin going to be ruining that mistake there, but they're all safely through turn number 1 on the brakes, then down into Montreal for the first time there. And this is going to be one of the flashpoints. It's going to be having to be so patient on the brakes, so patient on the accelerator. They come out of Montreal. It's still folks from Martin, from McFadden, Tom Stevens in there as well, Chris Pauly up there. You've got Ollie Wayne trying to defend from Craig Dunn here as well. Brilliant start to the race here, and for the most part the first couple of corners have went very, very well here, John.
Yeah, it did. Great start from Will Folks. He really was on the money straight away. I think Ryan had a few grip issues, didn't he? He seemed to be, his tyres were smoking right at the beginning, and that certainly cost him. But he's pulled himself back. Stu McFadden hardened his tail, and Tom Stevens there too, sort of as they're heading down the Bentley Straight now, although the first time into Brundle and then back out again. So I think they're now into sort of the bomb hole, aren't they, around Nelson into the bomb hole. So they're coming around to complete the first lap here. But it's a really good start from Will Fuchs. Delighted for him. Great start for him.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. That's them actually just coming out onto the Bentley Straight just now, because it's the 300 layout. That's them on their way down to Nelson and to Brundle. Folks still ahead of Ryan Martin, just 1/10 of a second. That was a bit of a move there from Finch in that 12th place car. He had a look there. You've got all hell kicking off in front. You've got Chris Boland and Tom Stevens. Craig Durrant gets that position there from the now 9th place car there of Jez Banks. So this is a brilliant start to the race for Jez Banks, getting himself up into that top 10. Now they're way coming across the line very, very shortly for that first lap here. That's Chris Pauly. What a first lap here. This is going to be a very, very intriguing race here, John.
It is indeed, crossing over the start-finish line for the first time then on Senna Straight. But it's Will Fuchs who has the lead. It's very close, and nothing between him and Ryan Martin and Stu McFadden. So this is going to be a real close call in the top 3. Oh, and who's gone wide? That looks like Martin has grabbed the lead back from Will Fuchs. Fuchs just going really wide there. That's cost him a place at the moment. So Martin grabs back the lead. He was there obviously right at the start on pole position, but he's taken that lead back. And Stu McFadden is right on Will Fuchs as well. So really everything to go for, but any slight error and that's what happens.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. If they go wide, you're going to have several cars that are looking to be very, very opportunistic. McFadden has a little look to the outside there of Fox. Not going to happen there. Fox's intermittent connection issues, I think, is going to be something that the drivers around is going to have to watch. Cluffy has had a problem. He's dropped down from 23rd position. He's now down in 26 right now. We're watching James King fight out with Abbott as well as we switch back up to this battle for 13th and 12th position. That is Finch just up ahead of Chris Slater. Slater fires it up the inside. Beautiful move there. Got a car off on the inside. That's Jez Banks. He was up into 8th position. I was singing his praises, and that is a car that is well and truly off into the barrier on the inside there, as you've got another fight behind there. That's Chris Darnell trying to get involved in this as well. This is getting very, very sketchy indeed here, and wow, this is thrill-a-minute stuff here at Snetterton, John.
It really is, and Chris Slater giving it his very best at the moment, and pulling himself up to 11th place now. Really going for it. And who's that guy?
Sorry, that was Adam Waters that just decided that he's not even going to bother turning at Nelson, just goes straight off into the barrier. Exit stage left, I believe.
Absolutely, yeah. Perhaps maybe his chances of winning the race are probably just about gone. But look how the field is stretching itself out now, Dave. You know, there's a lot of space between the top drivers and those in that second and third bunch. So a lot of points to play for here.
Certainly is. I tell you what else I'm noticing here. Adam Barron, 15th position already after starting right at the back of the grid. Let's have a look then. What happened to Jez Banks? We saw the car pointing off at the inside there. Oh, and he's just made a mistake and been caught by one of the cars there. Thankfully, didn't actually hit into the barriers there. So easy to do. The thing is that car behind has absolutely nowhere to go there, John.
That's right, yeah. And you mentioned Adam Barron. He's really working his way through the field now. He's under a second behind Etok there in 14th place. So he's working his way up and doing really well. But it's Ryan Martin now. He's only 0.3 of a second ahead of Will Fuchs, and and Stu McFadden hard on his tail, just half a second. So it's really, really close at the top there as well, keeping an eye on that, with the battles going on further down the field. Just as exciting. Going into Hamilton now, we're watching Liam Waterhouse in 10th place, looking to get himself up out of the top 10. But he's not far behind Ollie Wayne in 9th place. So there's opportunity there for him too.
There certainly is, but he's caught between a rock and a hard place at the moment because he's just behind Ollie Waynes and Liam Waterhouse. What has happened to our 8th place car there? Because that is Griffin.
Durrant.
Yeah, sorry, it's Durrant that's fallen all the way down, but also I was also seeing Glenn Griffin is now gone well and truly off track, so I think he's now back to the back of the grid there. I wonder if he has hit the barrier at some point. I think that's through about the second third of the circuit here. Back with Liam Waterhouse now though, because look at Chris Slater, he fancies having a go at this as well here. The fascinating little battle here. You see the number 90 car having to defend from Chris Slater. You've got John Finch behind there and Chris Darnell as well, as we cut back up to our race leaders. Now Stu McFadden has dropped off from this group here.
Yeah, he's down to 3rd place, isn't he? And he has dropped off. So maybe a little issue for him. Maybe had a bit of a spin or a tyre issue. But Martin and Fuchs there now have got themselves a good little lead, but it's very, very close. In fact, neck and neck, isn't it, between those two? They've swapped places, but then swapped back again. Martin grabs the lead back. So tight between those two.
Yeah, that was Ryan Martin outbreaking himself going into Montreal. It was Fuchs that got the cut back there. They did go side by side. It was a drag race coming up to that next left-hander, but it is still Ryan Martin that keeps the lead of this race. However, that now does bring Stu McFadden right back to this battle here. And again, it's thrilling stuff, because look, there's Chris Pauly and Bolland just behind as well here. So really, as that was very, very wide there from Stu McFadden, I'm wondering if he's maybe pushing those tyres a little bit too hard here.
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, it's not the first time he's gone off, is it? Onto the grass, and the tyres don't like it. They're all, within track limits at the moment, but they're all going off on those corners. Heading down Bentley at the moment, which is a great little straight, isn't it, to see as they now head down towards Brundle on the bridge. And it's Martin, Fuchs, McFadden is right back with them, although he's just over half a second now behind the leader. So these three are pulling themselves away, and interesting. Chris Pauly is still in there. He's just under 3 seconds behind the leader as well. So he's not out of this, but those three really look like they're dominating this race at the moment.
They absolutely are. 3 seconds ahead of Pauly and Boland right now. So it'll be interesting to see if they can knuckle down and get themselves back into this fight here. I definitely don't think it's impossible, because the way that they're fighting, Martin, Fuchs and McFadden, I think they're tripping themselves up. We see Ben Weston getting overtaken by Slater just up in front. That's going to be a move surely in that final corner. Thinks better of it, and I think that's a good move there down into Murray's. Gets back onto the power, and we'll have to rethink about how we're going to do that, because that was almost certainly never going to work, because that car has to turn in to that final left-hander at some point. We're back with this battle then for 1st, 2nd and 3rd. You saw very briefly there the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th right behind Chris Pauly, Chris Boland and Tom Stevens here. We're well past the halfway point in this first race of the evening here at Snetterton 300. Ryan Martin leads Fuchs and McFadden, but it's still that battle there, and McFadden again outbreaks himself, locks the brakes up and gets sent back into the clutches then of Chris Pauly and Chris Boland. He's going to have to get a move on here, because the pace is starting to ratchet up here, and I think Fuchs is now just waiting, biding his time. You can see Adam Barron now up in a P10. Hang on a minute, that lad started at the back of the grid and is now up in the P10. I know we've been focusing on the top 6, but that for me right now is one of the standout drives of this race so far. Yeah,
it's been superb. I mean, he obviously came from nowhere, didn't have any sort of qualifying, but he's really getting to grips with this course at the moment in car number 5 there, Adam Barron. Great racing from him. Can he pull himself even further up and challenge Ollie Wayne? He's about 5 seconds behind, so that's going to be quite difficult for him. But really holding his own now in that top 10 position, and he's ahead of Chris Darnell, of course, as well. So we'll keep a very close eye on how that's going. But that's a real battle between those two, just at the moment for that 10th place. And it's great to see that they're challenging. The drivers are challenging for these places further down the field, just as much as if they were right at the top. But look at that, Martin and Fuchs again. There's literally nothing between them. Stu McFadden now trailing by 2 seconds, trying to get himself back into that, and Chris Pawley as well. They're in 4th place with Boland in 5th and Stevens in 6th. Coming around to complete another lap now as they head down this wonderful centre straight towards Riches at the bottom of that straight. And who's going? Bit of a challenge here. Stewie Tock there, just looking for a way through from 14th, taking on James King there in 13th place. Back with Stewie Tock there. That's again all over the course, Dave. There are like battles going on there for places.
And they're just as important to all of these drivers as if they were in the top 5 or top 10. Even if you're fighting for 20th position, it means just as much to these drivers. That's what I love about this championship. So many little fights, toe-to-toes going on right now. As we said, we're watching Stu Etic. Another driver we actually have to watch, the driver behind him, is in front of him, is James King. Now, he is in a similar position, Adam Barron. He also started on the back of the grid. And another driver that's just absolutely tore through this field here, up in a P13. And what the two of them will be looking in these final 2 laps. Now, granted, it's going to be a tall ask to do, but we've obviously got that reverse grid. They'll be keeping, I would imagine, one eye on that. But as it is, Ryan Martin in the lead of this race ahead of Will Fox there. That gap now, probably the largest it's ever been. It's up to 0.4 of a second, although it's starting to come down a little bit again now. But I do wonder if that's now Ryan Martin starting to eke out that advantage. We did see him struggling for grip earlier on, but I definitely think Stu McFadden has maybe seen the best of that car right now.
Yeah, and a few little connection problems for Will as well, I think. He keeps disappearing off the screen. But he is hanging on in there. Is he just biding his time, I wonder? Because they've now burned off Stu McFadden, haven't they? And who's that who's gone off there? Linda Noble. Come on, Linda, get yourself back on the track there. We need to get you back into the race for Mission Motorsports with car 101 and 101. So get yourself back into the course there. But Ryan Martin still has the lead. Fuchs in 2nd place with McFadden. And we are with Ryan Martin. Look at them. It's absolutely neck and neck now. There's a real challenge going on here. And can Will Fuchs get his way through? Well, he can't at the moment. Ryan Martin is just holding his position. But look at that. They are so tight. Well, a mistake from either of them, and that's going to let Stu McFadden in.
Yeah, it really is, as we see Jez Banks taking over Stu Etic then for the battle for 14th position. I tell you what, folks, is playing a blinder right now. The way that he is driving that car, he is forcing Ryan Martin to really hustle that car and possibly try and overheat those tyres there. As well, folks said, 0.2 of a second right onto the back bumper. But have a look at McFadden now. He's 1.7 seconds back there. We're going to be on our penultimate lap here. I think we'll probably start the last lap this next time by as they go down into the right-hander then at Augie's. This is going to be on the run down to Williams as well. That right-hander that sets him up for the Bentley straight here. Beautiful exterior shot here. This is the real money shot right now. This is the big battle that is going on for all of the pennies right now. Ryan Martin then just ahead of Will Fox. They're going to be moving over to the right-hand side there. Fox is going to be waiting to see what Martin does. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't do anything this lap here, John, and actually tries to wait for that final lap.
Well, it's almost like there's a tow rope between the two, isn't there? It's so tight. I don't know. I think Will take any opportunity that he thinks he can grab. These cars are obviously so well matched with each other, but they really have dominated the race. It's been absolutely brilliant driving from both of them. John Finch just making his way up there, currently in 12th place, challenging Chris Darnell and Chris Darnell, and that battle for the top is just as exciting, isn't it? Ryan Martin still holding the lead on Will Fuchs, and there he is in 2nd place. The gap just slightly increasing at the moment, so maybe Fuchs has missed his opportunity, Dave.
Yeah, it is very, very slightly, but I think that will come back here because Martin seems to have, issues with really pulling that car in and getting traction out of the corners. Stu McFadden now 1.5 seconds. This is almost certainly, I imagine, going to be the final lap of this race here with Ryan Martin in the lead there, Will Fuchs in second place. For me, what you have to watch here, John, is if you watch Fuchs's body language, he sets the corner up beforehand. He'll maybe move to the right and it sets a left-hander. He'll move the car to the right and then move the car to the left, get that inertia in his favour, get the body roll in his favour. And it's all going to be coming down to these final couple of corners here. It's going to be through to Augie's and then into Williams. It's all about how we get that Bentley straight set up, but that was a poor corner there. Look at the pace that Fuchs gets out of there, brings that car back up to about 0.2 of a second, and this is going to be the run down the Bentley Straight. This is going to be the final run that we get from this race from our two leaders. We've got side by side further down as well, James King and Chris Darnell fighting out. That's 11th place now for James King. What a drive from those two, 10th and 11th place respectively from the back of the grid. That is unbelievable. But have a look at this, trying to go right the outside as well. Fuchs gets the inside line, clips the curb there, keeps the foot in, and that is going to drop him all the way back there. Stu McFadden now has the run on Will Fuchs. This is now going to be a battle for second place. Ryan Martin can streak off into the sunset, but what is going to happen with that battle for second place? McFadden is looking all over the back end of Will Fuchs right now, coming down to Murray's for the final time, but it is going to be Ryan Martin who will take the win. A very well deserved performance there. Will Fuchs in second place there. It's going to be Stu McFadden in third, Chris Pawley in fourth, Chris Boland's in fifth, Tom Stevens is going to come across the line in sixth place. Luke Arpino flew under the radar there up in the P7, and can we just say it's great to see Craig Dunn actually getting a good solid points performance this season, because it has just not gone his way so far. Ollie Wayne is going to come across the line in ninth. Adam Barron is still 100% my standout driver of the day. What a finish though. James King ahead of Jez Banks just at the line. Chris Darnell, you've got John Finch, Sue Etic in there as well. But John, that was a fantastic opening race.
It was, and it was also incredibly disciplined, wasn't it? A hugely well-disciplined race there. Those leaders, they led from the front, did Ryan Martin and Will Fuchs, but it was terrific stuff. Really great racing, and that's the sort of racing we want to see. Tight, tough. It could have gone either way, but there was no stupidity, no daft mistakes there, and I was really impressed with all the drivers there. Did really well. And Stu McFadden, maybe he thought he had a chance then on that last bend when Will Fuchs just slightly had to just pull himself over and just got slightly caught on the corner there. But in the end, I think Ryan Martin deserved that win because it was a terrific race. But again, I think you made some great points there about really good performances, from James King, Adam Barron in 10th place, James King 11th, to go from basically nowhere to get just inside and just outside the top 10. Really great driving.
Certainly was. Round 7 then comes to an end. We'll have round 8 coming up very, very shortly indeed. We'll go through the results. We'll go through how it all finished. We'll also have a chat, as I said, to this man here, Dan Hardwick, and go over a little bit about all of the in-race overlays that we are going to have access to over the next couple of rounds, thanks to our data analysis partners over at Splunk. But it's always a huge thank you to yourselves at home for listening, to watching, and to taking part in this as well. Huge thanks to our season partners, to BFBS, Splunk, and to racecarradios.co.uk. Let's have a quick look at the reverse grid wheel then. Let's give it a spin and see who we've got, and we'll find out who's on pole for the next race. And it's a top 11 reverse grid. That means that from the back of the grid here, John, James King is going to be on pole position, and I believe Adam Barron is going to be in second place. That is unbelievable for the start of the next race here.
Well, that actually is due reward for their fantastic efforts in the first race, isn't it? To produce the sort of race they did. They've been well rewarded with first and second place.
It certainly is. Well, let's take you through the final results then for that first race of 2 here tonight. It was a race win for Ryan Martin in the number 85. Will Fox finishing in P2. Stu McFadden in 3rd place with Chris Pawley in 4th. Chris Bolins in 5th. Tom Stevens finishes in P6. Luke Carpino in P7. Craig Dunn in P8. Ollie Waynes in 9th. And then Adam Barron finishing in 10th place. It's your pole sitter for race 2. James King making up for lost events in 11th position. Jez Banks finishes in 12th. Chris Thornell in 13th. John Finch finished in 14th position. Stu Etic in 15th and Chris Slater in 16th. They were involved in a manic battle all the way through the race there. Rhys Bowes in 17th. Ben Weston finishes in 18th position. Michael Clough finishes in 19th. Dan Berris in 20th position. Ryan Abbott is in 21st. Lindsay Noble in 22nd. Adam Waters in 23rd. And then Steve Ward finishing a lap down. Glenn Griffin finishing 2 laps down. And Liam Waterhouse, after that earlier incident, finishing 6 laps down. So, as you said, very few retirements from the race there, John, and a very respectable and very respectful set of laps there.
Definitely. And I'm just really excited about the next race because you mentioned, obviously, James King now in pole position, Adam Barron 2nd, Ollie Wayne, therefore, 3rd, and Craig Durrant 4th. That is such an incredible opportunity for all of those drivers, if they can make good starts, to really get some really important points into race 8. So that's worked out really, in a way, it's worked out really nice, isn't it, to have such a big reversal. I think it's the biggest reversal we've had so far on the grids for this season. So opportunity knocks for them.
Certainly as well. We did promise you a little bit of a special interview this evening, and we have got Dan Hardwick in to have a chat with the amazing overlays that we've got coming this season from our data analysis partners over at Splunk. And Dan, a very good evening. That was a wild race.
Yeah, so I did get a lot of practice. I started practicing tonight about 7:30. About 7 o'clock tonight, my pedals were in bed. So yeah, it's not been a great race, but I was happy to get into the 211s for a little bit and just be fairly consistent. I did get a little helping hand from Linda a couple of times, but we'll have a look at that later. Yeah, it was a good race. I enjoyed it.
It's fine. Just, a helping hand is always a good thing. But obviously, we've got you in here, Dan, to talk about the new data that we can overlay on the races. Just tell us a little bit about the partnership between the BFBS Afvrc and Splunk.
Yeah, we came on board with Splunk about a year ago, 6 months ago, and they wanted to work with. They've got a defence contract with Splunk. We wanted to work with us to see how we can develop a motorsports element and see how that can be fed into Splunk and give us some meaningful insights. Obviously, with iRacing, the data is very much it's quite insular in that you can see some information when you're viewing the race, like as broadcasters, but the rest of it is very much down to the PCs that are running the data themselves, running the game. So with Splunk, we can feed it out to this third-party website. We can do the data analysis on it, which I've been working on with the guys from Splunk over the last kind of few weeks. I start looking into that. The lap traces to help improve drivers is kind of a start point for where we need to be, but also bringing in some of that really interesting data, like looking at 0 to 60 times, looking at input percentages and how driving styles differ, and how I'm about 4 seconds, 5 seconds a lap off of Ryan. Well, what I want to be able to do is look at Ryan's data, look at my data, and align them and see how that is happening. See why that Ryan is so much quicker, and I just can't get anywhere near him. But hopefully the data should tell me that. And I've been looking at it myself. Interestingly, I know I used to do this, and I thought I'd got rid of it, but I accelerate early, which means I have to back off on the exit of corners, and you can clearly see that in the data traces that I'm accelerating, backing off, accelerating, which is just slowing me down, and down the straights I'm just losing so much time. And that's kind of where we want to be with this data to do that, is to help train the slower cars and bring us all up to speed.
Yeah, it is such a crucial part of the modern, not just sim racer, but real life racers toolbox, as well as data analysis, learning what you're looking for. And we're watching a video on screen showing exactly that between yourself and James King, watching the input average between the two drivers. And you can quite clearly see that you've got more time, more percentage on that throttle. You can also clearly see the crossover point. You can also see where you're coasting. You've got more time on the coasting, less time, significantly less time braking as well. So again, data like that, absolutely invaluable for drivers. Maybe not so much this in terms of being able to analyze a crash in terms of the speed at the impact, the amount of time that it costs you. But again, all these sorts of bits of information not only help you as a driver, but for us, it's able to provide a much more immersive experience for our viewers at home.
I hope so, yeah, and we're going to continue to develop those stats and see where we can pull the information in. Interesting one with that, with myself and James doing that lap there. James was on the brake a lot more than I am, but he's a lot quicker. He was 2.5 seconds quicker on that particular lap. Mainly because he's using the brake to turn the car, which is a more advanced driving technique. You can use that brake pedal to put the weight on the nose and let the back end come around a little bit. That's great if you've got a really got a slightly more expensive wheel and you can control that kind of jitteriness. I'm not comfortable with that jitteriness, so that's something I need to learn. Hopefully, once this season kind of rolls on and we get this system working, what's next really is to roll it out to the live track cars. AFRC starts just before the end of this series, so hopefully we're going to get some data loggers into the BMWs and into the MSA cars to be able to feed that data.
I was going to say, Dan, the benefits of this you can transfer across to the real thing. And you'll be obviously at Snetterton, so honestly, being able to analyse the data from circuits that you're going to be competing, during the summer is going to be absolutely invaluable, isn't it? And the other point you just made there about the late braking, we know that the Toyota GR86 is, the back end does like to come round a bit, doesn't it? So that late braking is clearly helping.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to look at Ryan. I'm gathering Ryan's data today as well, so it'd be interesting to see what his sort of percentages are. And I imagine his will be similar to James, is that he's using the brakes to help steer that car a little bit. The accident one you mentioned will be really useful as well when we get out onto track. Being able to alert the team immediately that there's been an accident. We can see that spike in the G-forces and alert the team immediately there's been an accident. Not only the team, but we can feed that out via SMS or via another message system, email or Discord, and let other people know. So if we've had a fairly serious accident, we can see the impact of that, what sort of speed loss we've had, and what sort of forces were involved, and we can get perhaps a bit more of a heads up on what's going to happen with that accident. Even if it's just to run into the barriers, we can still see where the car is on track and be able to expect it coming in with some damage. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting journey over the next year, and see where it goes. So yeah,
hugely beneficial to everybody. Great work, and congratulations on the work that you're doing with Splunk. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
And Dan, just going back to tonight, race 2. Again, a wild race one. What can you take away from that first race and sort of improve on in that second one?
I think I was getting braver on the brakes with that. So, like I say, I've last week I raced on my clutch pedal as a brake pedal. This week I'm back onto my load cell. And I was getting faster as the race went on, getting braver into kind of Brundle. Brundle is the one. I think some laps I was about a second quicker than I was on the previous laps. It's just balancing that brake pedal, balancing the steering, and making sure that it's not going to spin around on you, because Brundle into Nelson is a really tricky pair of corners. But yeah, it's just come through practice.
Excellent stuff. Well, listen, Dan, thank you so much for coming and having a chat with us this evening. Best of luck for race 2, and thanks for bringing on board Splunk and bringing them on board with the BFBS AFVRC.
Cheers. See you later.
There we go then. Fascinating, John, to hear from Dan about the insights that data analysis can bring to the drivers, and also how, as you pointed out, it'll be able to almost seamlessly cross over to the data that they provide from real life.
Well, I think that is so important, isn't it? Data is just into everything at the moment. Right from Formula One downwards, data analysis. And if they can use this, all the drivers can use this. It's going to benefit them throughout the course of the season when we get into their real cars, and it's really exciting. It's such an exciting development, and it just goes to show why not only this racing is really important in its own right, as we've seen over the last couple of years. Obviously, during lockdown, it came into its own, but now we're seeing the benefits that this can bring when the guys get into their own cars, and that is, I think that is a huge step forward, massively significant move in bringing almost like the sim racing into the world of real motor racing as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as you can see there, we're just a couple of minutes away from our next race. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have race 2. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another race here for the BFBS Afvrc Season 4. We're all rested, ready to go. We've calmed down after race 7. It's time for race 8 here at Snetterton 300. David Christie and John Knight in here with you on the live coverage. Huge thank you, as always, to Mike Yao from SimSport Solutions for the awesome camera work behind the scene. But the big talking point then is obviously that top 11 reverse grid here, John, and a lot is going to happen in this next session. In fact, we don't even have time to talk about it, as now that does look slightly different from what I thought was going to happen in the reverse grid there, but either way, Chris Slater now shown as taking pole position, Chris Darnell in second, Stu McFadden in third, Chris Pawley in fourth, Ben Weston in 5th, Tom Stevens in 6th, and that'll change. There we go, that's better. James King in pole position then, Adam Barnett in 2nd. That is much more like it, and order is restored. Ollie Waynes and Craig Dunn in 4th and 3rd position, Luke Arpino and Tom Stevens in 5th and 6th, Chris Boland and Chris Pawley in 7th and 8th, Stuart McFadden and Will Folks in 9th and 10th, Ryan Martin and Jez Banks in 11th and 12th, and we are going to have to get a move on. Chris Darnell in 13th and 14th with John Finch. They've then got Stu Etick alongside with Chris Slater, Reece Bowes and Ben Weston. Michael Clough is in 19th, Dan Berris in 20th, Ryan Abbott in 21st, 22nd for Lyndon Oval, Adam Waters in 23rd, Dan Hardwick in 24th, Steve Ward, Glenn Griffin, Liam Waterhouse. Let's go racing. I am never going to do it that fast in my life again. Great start from James King. And we've got an absolute belly. 5 cars wide here at Snetterton. All behind there. Stu Etick involved in there. You've got James King, Adam Barn, Craig Dunn and Ollie Wayne all trying to go 4 wide into the corner. There's chaos and carnage already. Ollie Wayne and Tom Stevens caught in that. And that is chaos, and that is what we thought was going to happen in race 2, and there are the virtual thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds worth of damage there. Cars rejoining back on the track in a horrible way there. And I don't.
Let's see a replay, please.
I don't think there's enough eye bleach in the world, John, for what we have just witnessed there.
What that has done, of course, it's meant that the leading cars with James King, Adam Barron, Luke Arpino and Will Folks. Look at Will Folks is back up there. It's going out and Ryan Martin to 6th with Chris Spoland into 5th place. That means that all those cars will build up a huge lead now going into the first lap. And all this, I think there's a lot of damage to tyres and bodywork, and I think there's going to be a lot of people who not quite sure what sort of car they've got to run. But the people at the top, James King, Adam Barron, what an opportunity they have now to make some great points in the championship.
Yeah, this is going to be a big leveler for sure. We saw Craig Dunn there. His season of bad luck just absolutely continues as his Toyota GR86 converted to a that's a huge moment for Adam Barton coming out of the Brundle there. Huge clip off the curb that unsettles the car. Very easy to do, and that drops him down into P7. That is not the last car we are going to see doing that for sure. And it was just a way to joke there that Craig Dunn, his car being turned into a Reliant Robin there, because it's pretty much 3 wheels left on that thing. The suspension absolutely goosed. But back up at the 20th position, Stu McFadden, but losing out on that lap 1, Glenn Griffin, Dan Hardwick, Jez Bank, Craig Dunn and Chris Darnell all outside of the top 20 there. But well, that was a wild one. I tell you, who has gained is Ryan Martin.
He has, Ryan Martin and Will Fuchs as well. And but Luke Arpino, Will is now up to 2nd place. That's a brilliant bit of work from him, because he must have started from 10th on the grid, so he must have avoided all that melee at the beginning. But Stu McFadden clearly didn't. I mean, it all started, didn't it, with a little skid across there, a couple of skids. Looked like Craig Durrant might have been right at the centre of it.
Yeah, he was the epicenter of all of that, unfortunately, and completely unwittingly. The car was just, cold tires and things like that. But yeah, that is some hard damage here. What I want to see is there's a car that reversed back onto track as well, and right into the path of several cars.
Look at it.
It was absolutely brutal. I think it was that car, the golden coloured car, just on the right hand side. A picture here, it just fires it into reverse and comes straight back onto track. And well, yeah, there you go. That is the aftermath of one of the messiest starts I think that we've seen so far this season. But thankfully, in fact, here you go. There's that car just reversing right back onto track there. I think stewards are definitely going to have something to say on that for sure. And thankfully, didn't actually really cause all too much issues there. However, back to the action then. It's still James King. I can't believe James King leading this race then, ahead of Will Foulkes, then Ryan Martin, Chris Boland getting caught on the jump there. Luke Arpino fires it up the inside. That was a poor corner there, and this is going to be coming onto the Bentley straight here. As in fact, no, it's not. That's Coram. Sorry, that was down the bomb hole. So Chris Boland in between a rock and a hard place there. Luke Arpino up into P4. You've got Chris Pauly also fancying getting past here, as well as we have a look at Chris Slater down in 9th position there. Oh, and that's a big lock up coming into Murray's. Oh. My goodness me, Dan Berris sent it over the curbs there. I'd be very interested to see if there's any of that car left.
It's just you cannot take your eyes off this, but brilliant. And look at Adam Barron, Michael Clough as well up there into the top 10, and Chris Slater, Ollie Wayne as well into the top 10. Darren Berris 11th. These are all people that we haven't really been able to speak too much about so far in the championship. That melee at the beginning has really opened this race up. But James King, there he is leading with Will Foulkes and Ryan Martin, the familiar faces of the championship so far. They've worked their way right up from 10th and 11th on the grid to get themselves up there into the top 3 so far, with Luke Arpino in 4th place. So some great quality driving from those
Change for the lead
men
there, John. Change for the lead. Will Foulkes takes the lead from James King then by 1/10 of a second. King trying to get that cut back here. Moves to the inside there, fires it down the inside. Brave move there from James King. Wild stuff. And have a look at Ryan Martin. He's got the whole shot now. Ryan Martin from 3rd place is now taking the lead of the races down through the Bentley Straight. What can Will Foulkes do? We have got ding ding round number 2. This is exactly what we saw on race 1 earlier on. They're going to be dragged straight through this Bentley Street here on the brakes into this left-hander. Have a look at Will Foulkes here. He cuts out. Ryan Martin tries to get the cut back there. What a performance here. That was brilliant stuff there. I've got to say, hats off to James King. That was a great move there. Very, very brave, but just couldn't get that car stopped in time there, John.
Well, that was fantastic, wasn't it, as they go around the bomb hole down towards Coram and then onto Murray's. But yeah, fantastic. And that just goes to show, I mean, how much pace these cars have got on the centre straight there. That opportunity to get past. Really brilliant stuff there from Will Foulkes. And then, again, I think both of these two, in fact, James King, there he goes. He literally goes for the inside lane, loses the traction, and he allows Ryan Martin and Will Foulkes through to retake those positions. So Will still leading. He's got 0.3 of a second lead over Ryan at the moment. This is great stuff. And Craig Pauly now making a move up to 4th place from Luke Arpino as well. But it's settled down a bit in the middle of the grid there, isn't it now, with Adam Barron, Michael Clough, Chris Slater and Darren Berris in the top 10, Ollie Wayne just outside, and Linda Noble into 13th place as well. So Linda going well in this second race, which is great.
Yeah, proper touring car stuff here at Snetterton. Chris Pauly ahead of another 2 cars here. Let's have a look at what has happened to Steve Ward. This is coming down into Agostini, and it just slides out. That's not the only time we'll see that car. Again, going back to what I said just before our first race, the tail end of these GR86 is very, very happy to slide about, very flamboyant, and will throw itself out at any given opportunity. Usually fairly straightforward to catch it, but every once in a while, it will just sort of be beyond your reach there. As we've got off in the background as well, let's cut to another replay here as Liam Waterhouse. Oh, that's a very, very awkward moment there, because he just got clipped there from a car that was trying to, I think that was down into Coram there, trying to get past, couldn't do it, weaved over the left-hand side and just clipped poor Liam Waterhouse out of the way. I think that might have been Finch and Waters that were involved in that one here, as we're still seeing Dan Berris ahead of Ollie Wayne. But 7 minutes left to go in this race here. Up into fifth position, you've got Chris Bolland and Luke Arpino, and Arpino's off. That's coming through Brundle, and Arpino dropping all the way down there, facing the barrier, and that is disastrous for young Luke Arpino. You hate to see it, and he's going to have to wait to get back on that track. He might just
he's got a problem. I think he's got a puncture. I think he has a puncture.
That left front wheel not looking very, very happy indeed. That car looking kind of done and dusted there. Oh yeah, you can see that car is absolutely broken. He's turning to the left and the wheel pointing to the right, so that thing is absolutely done. Let's get a replay of what happened here. In fact, this is earlier on then. This is Linda Noble coming into Agostini. A little bit too much power there. Back in, and again, it's not the last time we're going to see that, because the rear end of that thing just does not like, taking too much speed into these corners. It just washes out and there's no grip.
Well, she's lost her tail end as well. I think Linda's race as well. I'm sorry I put the curse of death on her there, didn't I, by saying how well she was doing. But it just goes to show, one little slip like that and you can it cost you. But our leaders are still up there and really showing their class at the moment. Will and Ryan and James King and Chris Pawley as well, doing really, really well. There's a bit of a gap, isn't there, I think?
Oh no! Oh no! Oh, that's a big hit. Was that Dan Berris that got caught up in that one? But that's a huge hit into the barriers there. And yeah, you're a spectator at that point there, John. That's a horrible, horrible incident.
Yeah, not a lot you can say about that, but Darren Berris, well, if it was Darren Berris that he ran into, then Darren is still going pretty well, because he is up to the 9th place now.
That is a hard hit.
So who did he run into? Yeah, the barrier played its part there, didn't it, as well. So, but Darren Berris still going, he's 9th place and challenging there, he's challenging Chris Slater at the moment. So Darren's having a really good run here, as is Ollie Wayne, who's just behind him. This is a real battle, isn't it, to keep those top 10 places and keep going. But just don't know where to look on this race. It's just non-stop everywhere. You've got to have eyes everywhere.
Yeah, I feel really bad
circuit.
for our broadcast producer Mike Yao tonight, because the action has been coming in thick and fast. And it's just been a case of having a dart between here, there and everywhere. And that is the battle for 8th position. This, though, is Jez Banks fighting off Ward just behind him again with another battle there. Oh, that's almost a little bit of contact into turn 1 there. Dan Berris onto the back of Slater there, coming down into that second corner into Montreal here. Fascinating battle here for P8 right now. And as you said, it's a case of, you don't know where to look, and I'd imagine it's the same for these drivers as well, because for the likes of Dan Berris here, he's caught in between a rock and a hard place. He wants to try and take that position from Slater, but he's got Ollie Wayne, who's looking very, very hungry up there as well. Yeah,
he's got him gnawing away at his back end, and that can't be a lot of fun, to be fair. But it's great racing, though. This is what sports car racing is all about, isn't it? Touring car racing. This is just brilliant. And I'm heading into Hamilton. There's just nothing between these guys, absolutely nothing at all. Will Fuchs just building up a little bit of a lead on Ryan Martin. He's now half a second. It's just increased slightly. And James King is 5 seconds as well behind the lead. So those two just pulling away a little bit. And again, if you look at how well they did in the first race, they are cementing their positions at the top of the championship, Dave, as we speak.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Just notice Tom Stevens having an instant. He's dropped down 3 positions down in P15 right now, just ahead of James Banks. But this is the battle still for 8th position there. You've got just up in that 8th position right now. Chris Slater still trying to hold on from Dan Beres right now as they come through Coram, through into the bomb hole. You've got Ollie Waynes waiting, poised like a ninja, trying to take advantage of anything that happens between these two up in front as well. Through that right-hander, then it's down into Murray's to start another lap. We've done 13 minutes out of 15, so we are very, very shortly going to be coming up to our final lap of the race here, John. And yet again, it has just gone in the blink of an eye here.
I'm just trying to steal that wonderful line from Alex last week, like a scolded cat on a hop-tin roof, but I haven't been able to find a suitable place to put it just yet. But I made a note of that comment last week. Absolutely superb from that. If you've got any more of those, Alex, let me know, please, because we'll try and slot them in. But we will credit.
You will be best friends with him. He has got tons of them. But have a look at that, Dan Beres having a look right the outside of Chris Slater. Here comes Ollie Wayne as well, trying to make some hay here, but it's not going to work. The two of them side by side. Ollie Wayne is going to have the outlined. And what has just happened with Will Fuchs there? Because Ryan Martin now side by side. There was a half a second gap there, so we've now got 2 battles. This is incredible stuff coming
Ryan
up.
Martin's got through.
But Fuchs has the inside line, so Martin is going to have the outside there. So we're picture in picture. So Ryan has to duck back into second place. This is incredible action here, and we've got just 50 seconds left. I think this might be the final lap of the race here. I'm not sure it's going to be very tight. It certainly was very, very tight on the first race here. And given that we had that accident here, John, I just don't know if we're going to have time to sneak another lap in.
Well, it's brilliant disciplined driving again from these two. They were superb in the first race, and they are showing that discipline again. This is brilliant driving. You can't really pay enough compliments to both of them, because it just needed a little slip from either of them, and James King would be reaping the benefits back in 3rd place. But these two have been absolutely sensational. They really have.
Oh, that was wild stuff here. Picture in picture, though. We'll come back to that in a second. We've got 5 seconds left. I think that's it. It's going to be Will Fuchs to take the lead. But here comes Ryan Martin. He's on the charge. It's going to be side by side. It's going to be a photo finish. Who takes the win? It's going to be Will Fuchs by 3/1000ths of a second from Ryan Martin. That is incredible. James King is going to come across the line in 3rd place. Chris Pauley in 4th. Chris Boland in 5th position. Here's the fight though for 8th and 9th position. Dan Beres and Ollie Wayne. Wayne gets the position right in the line. Ollie Wayne takes P8 from Dan Beres. Chris Slater, after a last lap incident, got forced wide on that fight. He loses out that 8th position. Can you believe it? 10th position. It's then Abbott in 11th. I have not seen a final lap like that in quite a while there, John.
That was absolutely sensational driving. Really brilliant from the top two there, and then just down the field as well. Great to see the likes of Michael Clough there in 7th, Adam Barron in 6th. When you bear in mind that Adam, didn't have any chance to do any qualifying today, I think that's some great. You mentioned you thought he was probably your driver of the day, and I think he's probably just cemented that, hasn't he?
Yeah, I absolutely. I'm stunned at the gaps that are there. Great to see Glenn Griffin after that lap 1 Stramash still finishing the race. Stu McFadden though retiring. That is going to be a huge championship talking point throughout the remainder of the season here, John. But a wonderful race from everyone involved here, and for me that's one of the standout races of this season for sure.
Oh, definitely. If not for the last couple of years. When you have racing like that, you just cannot take your eyes off it. It is just sensational. And the guys, should take a huge amount of credit for that, because, again, they showed tremendous discipline, didn't they, going into those last few laps? It could easily have gone, in a different direction, but it absolutely didn't. I think we've got Ryan Martin waiting for a chat. Hopefully we're talking to Ryan very, very shortly, because it's been a brilliant day's another fantastic week for both Ryan and for Will too. And I don't know about you, Dave, but it's getting more and more exciting every week.
It really, really is. It'll just be a couple of minutes before we let you loose, John, onto all of the drivers to see what they've got to say for themselves. But a quick final question. Coming out of Murray's for the final time, how much do you think in real life Ryan Martin was jumping up and down in his virtual cockpit trying to get some traction out of that virtual GR86?
We will have to ask him that very question, won't we? So stand by for that one, Ryan. I know that you're standing by for a chat, but no. Here's the full result.
Wow, look at that differential. Will Fox taking the win from Ryan Martin, and the gap, the official gap, classed as plus 0.000. Now, I'm presuming that makes that a dead heat, but giving it to Will Fox there. I have never seen anything as close as that. James King in third position, Chris Pawley in fourth, Chris Boland in fifth, Adam Barron again, good recovery drive there in P6, Michael Clough into P7, Ollie Waynes in P8, Dan Beres in P9, Chris Slater finishing and rounding out the top 10, Ryan Abbott's in 11th, John Finch in 12th position, Liam Waterhouse in 13th position. Let's just also take note that that's a top 12 lockout for the RAF. Tom Stevens in 14th position, 15th place for Adam Waters, Jez Banks in 16th, Steve Ward in 17th, Linda Noble in 18th position, 19th place was Stu Eatick, Craig Dunn into 20th position, 21st is Dan Hardwick, then it's Chris Darnell in 22nd, Luke Arpino in 23rd after that last lap incident, Rhys Bowes in 24th, Ben Weston finishing one lap down, Glenn Griffin finishing one lap down, and Stu McFadden retiring 6 laps ago. Oh my good lord. Well, it's time, John, for something that I know you're really eager, because I know you cannot wait to hear from them. So let's bring in Ryan Martin first of all to have a chat with you and see what he's got to say for himself, John.
Oh, good evening to you, Ryan. We're just getting our breath back after that. Goodness knows what it's been like for you tonight.
Oh, but I was just talking to James King about the turn 1 incident in race 2, and we were just looking at it, and I think we could count 9 cars pointing the wrong way. So yeah, like you've obviously watched the whole thing unfold, and race 1, like I was just under stress the whole time. I thought Will was going to just do something silly, and then he almost did at the chicane at the end of the race, and then but absolute chaos. Absolute chaos, isn't it? But again, it must be fun to watch.
Oh, terrific fun to watch. I mean, goodness knows what the repair bills are going to be on those cars. I hate to think about it, but you know, you and Will have produced some terrific driving tonight, and actually some incredibly disciplined driving as well, because all it needed was a brief mistake from either of you in both of those races, and your races would have been done. So congratulations to both. But tell me, Ryan, you are just taking to this like a duck to water this year.
This car, when I first got told it was going to be this car that was going to be used, I committed to jumping in the GR86 official races, and the race that was actually active that week was Road America, and I just drove. It was the fixed setup, so the car feels completely different now with a decent setup on it, but at the time with the fixed setup, I realised it was that much fun. You can really throw it around. I think Will, maybe even Stu, both have a bit more raw pace in race, but I think it's just a little bit more consistency from myself. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Stu didn't finish that race. I think he got caught up in the turn 1 madness, but I think they've both got a little bit more pace, but I seem to be able to drive this car and get it into the right place at the right time, thankfully.
Now tell me, we were speculating in commentary that possibly you were bouncing up and down on your rig to try and get a little bit of extra pace at the end there. Can you confirm or deny that?
Well, I thought coming at the last turn, I was like, I'll give it a go, but I'm not going to be anywhere close. And then I've looked at it, and I think it's 3 more frames, and I would have been in P1 crossing the line. I needed 3 more frames to get ahead. So yeah, I was using the side draft. It's a thing in iRacing that you can actually draft at the side of cars as well. Was able to get a little bit of speed going, but yeah, I think he must have got me by. Well, what are the results? He beat me by. Well, it actually says that it was 0.000 of a second that he beat me by. So it looks like we got the exact same race time.
Well, that 3 frames sort of equates possibly to 3 1,000ths.
Well, there you go. That's how close it was. But I'll take the 96 points. I don't mind. I'll take the 96.
I'm sure you will. And actually, you mentioned Stu McFadden, who I think Stu's going to join us in a minute. And things did not go well for him, and we'll get his take on that very shortly. But Ryan, congratulations on a terrific night, because obviously, you won the first race, you won race, and then you've obviously race 7, and you've come second, albeit by a hair's breadth, literally.
Very, very small margin there.
Absolutely, but great for your points, and obviously for the RAF team, top 12 places going to the RAF, and it's certainly cementing your positions there at the top of the championship. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week, and thanks a lot for joining us immediately afterwards. You can get your breath back now.
I'll try. I might have to go have a lie down, but yeah, cheers for tonight, and hopefully again I'll be able to speak to you next week if I get a decent result. So yeah, take it easy, have a good night, and I'll hopefully speak to you in a week's time.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring James in now. James King. James, it's been an interesting evening for you, hasn't it? And we've sort of got you down as one of the drivers of the day, really, because you had to start, obviously, I think from the pit lane, didn't you, in the first race? But a very, very good performance then, coming third in that second one.
Yeah, it's about as much as I could hope for, really. I mean, the pace of the guys at the front is unbelievable. I might be one of the old dogs in terms of iRacing here, but yeah, those guys are unbelievably fast. So I was just happy to be able to hold on for, not instantly lose the position straight away. Even getting to have a little bit of an attack on Will when he passed me. But yeah, no, it's actually been a really good round.
Yeah, the reverse grid change was a bit of a help to you, but you held on there, despite all the melee that was going on that first lap, and we'll be hearing very shortly from Stu McFadden about what it was like to be stuck in the middle of that, because that's obviously cost him this evening. But from your point of view, it's a great track, isn't it, Snetterton? And there's such a lot of opportunity for overtaking, such a lot of opportunity when you're in cars like this to have such close racing that we've seen tonight.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Snetterton is one of the tracks I've been fortunate enough to take a race car around. Not in anger. I got to do a track day at the end of 2021 in a team car. Although a Peugeot 306 is a bit different to a Toyota GR86. But yeah, the racing these cars provide is phenomenal. And like you say, a big track like this, you've got plenty of opportunity for a bit of drafting. And keeping close to each other, and there's a lot of space as well. So, you're not too fussed about the tiniest little incident costing you all the time in the world. You can make it back.
And we were hearing at the interval from Dan Hardwick about the data collection that's going on and the lap analysis, which not only is going to benefit you and all the rest of the drivers throughout the course of this championship, but also when you get into cars, into the real thing, later on next month and into the summer, this data analysis is going to be so helpful, isn't it? And that's a real step forward this year for this championship.
Well, absolutely. I mean, data is massive. My own experience was the race of remembrance at the end of 21. I did my first stint, and I was, quite far off pace, which was a bit to be expected as I was still obviously a novice. But I went through the data with an engineer, and I knocked 4 seconds off my lap time, just from spending 20 minutes, half an hour going through, looking at the corners and apex speeds compared to one of the other guys in the team, all that sort of stuff. And the fact that we're developing this system. I mean, Dan's doing some phenomenal work with it, and I'm really excited to see where he can take it over the next few months.
Well, I think we're all excited to see that now. That's going to be reflected in your, not only for the rest of this season, not in this series, but also when you get into the cars for real. James, great to talk to you. Congratulations on your performance this evening. Really good recovery from you, and we wish you all the very best for the next rounds of the championship. Let's bring in Stu McFadden then. Stu, a mixed evening for you, shall we say, because things went pretty well in the first race, obviously getting a third position there. But what on earth happened at the start. You were so unlucky to be mixed up in the middle of that.
Yeah, it's just sometimes the way it goes, unfortunately. Sometimes you have really good luck, as I said last week, where I lucked into it, and it was, and then sometimes you don't luck into it. I've kind of learned not to get annoyed. Well, obviously I'm annoyed, but not to get too hung up about it, because it could be easily be Ryan next week. But yeah, I think someone just lost it. I think a couple of cars lost it, going on memory. And then I honestly just got clipped by the tiniest of margins.
And that really was your race, wasn't it? Because there was too much damage to the car.
Yeah, I just got a meatball, as we call it, or like a pit repair flag. I don't know why my voice keeps breaking. I do apologise. Yeah, it was just I was way home at the weekend. Sorry, so I never had much time to practice. Here comes the excuses. So yeah, I was a bit underprepared going in.
Well, not reflected in your first race. I mean, goodness me, you were third fastest in qualifying, and then you got the third place in the first race tonight. So you might be a bit unprepared, but there's not a lot you can do about an instant when you're kind of mixed up in a melee like that. Yeah. So don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, I just want to be P1 all the time. Dave knows me too well. I just want to be first all the time, and sometimes that can't happen when it doesn't happen, I get a bit unhappy, but it's still good fun. Had a really, really good race with the guys. Once again, this league is like so much fun to be in. The admins do an absolutely fantastic job of everything. You just click the green button to race, and then everything else is taken care of. So big shout out to the admins for making it so easy for us to hop in and have some fun on a Tuesday evening.
Absolutely, it's good to hear. And we've been talking about the data analysis that Dan Hardwick's doing, and I'm sure you're going to benefit from that later on in the season too, as everybody is. And it's just going to make such a huge difference to everybody, and everyone is therefore going to be improving their own lap times and their own performance, which can only make for more exciting racing.
Yeah, 100%. If everyone's within, if we've got, instead of the like 4 or 5 cars we've got up the front now, if we can have 10, that just makes the competition so much better, because there's so many people that could just pop up into P1. And then it makes it's a bit stressful for us during the time as we're driving, but when you look back in the evening, you get excited because you're like, wow, that was like so much fun. Especially, I think, what was it, last week at Donington, when I think it was, what's his name, Ryan just pipped me to pole by a tiniest amount. I think we were like half a second ahead of everyone else, and that was just like, wow. We've been messaging each other through the week, and you're like, wow. He messaged me the day after. He's like, I still can't believe the pace we pulled in quali. So yeah, it's good fun for everyone. Everyone's so like friendly with each other as well, which makes it good.
Well, that's right. Well, you only have to look at the winning margin was it was almost a dead heat, 3 1,000ths of a second tonight.
I think Ryan was telling me earlier. It's insane.
That goes to show. Anyway, Stu, thanks ever so much for your time this evening. Well done, and I'm sure that you've got a whole week to put that car back together again. It's going to cost you thousands, but you know what? It's well worth it.
Let's hope not.
Great to talk to you, Stu McFadden there, and bringing us to the end of our interviews. But some interesting insights tonight, Dave. I'm sure you'd agree on what's been a brilliant night of racing.
Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic. That's when you know you've got a good thing here, John, when you've got that absolute melee in race one and still drivers are coming going, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Absolutely, roll on to the next one. Instead of what I've normally seen is them throwing their toys out the pram and having a complete huff. They are absolutely just rolling with the punches, ready to take it again and get going back next week. And of course, next week we are all changed. We are off to my neck of the woods. Can you tell I'm a bit excited? We are off to Knockhill for rounds 9 and 10 of the BFBS Afvrc, the Armed Forces Virtual Racing Challenge. It's a huge thank you to all of our commercial partners, to BFBS, to Splunk, to Racecar Radios, to yourself, John, for joining me again here in the commentary booth. I think you're not with us next week. It'll be Alex that's in the commentary booth again, stepping in as super sub. A huge thank you to Mike Yao behind the scenes for Sim Sports Solutions, and a huge thank you to yourself at home as well for watching tonight. We hope you've had an absolute blast, because we certainly have. We'll see you same time next week for Knockhill. Until then, have a wonderful week. Take care.